Hi guys, I hope you can hear me. Nice to have everyone here. Good evening. I think my current time zone is in the evening, so good evening everyone. Um, good day wherever you are, and we're really happy to have you guys here. So welcome to the Polygon Lagos YouTube live channel, and we're really happy to be live streaming today, and we hope to be doing this more often to learn about Web3 and also about Polygon technology. So yeah, we're really excited to be here. So we have a speaker today. Today we'll be talking more about technical writing and how you can get into it. And so yeah, we have someone with us. So I'm happy to introduce to you guys Solomon Esenyi. Solomon Esenyi is a technical writer at waku.org. So today he's going to be telling us how you can build a technical writing career as a technical writer in Web3. So, hi Solomon, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I hope your day was awesome.
Yeah, it was. Thank you very much. So let me just present my screen.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, let me know when you can see my screen. All right. Okay, so I'll be talking about how you can build a technical writing career in Web3. Just to be sure, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Sorry, my mic
All
was
right.
muted. But yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So a bit about myself. So I consider myself a tech explorer, and I have a team for Python and finance. So I'm always doing all my projects in Python, and I like exploring the finance space overall. And then I also like writing about code than writing the actual code itself, and that was why I actually switched from software engineering to technical writing, and I've been enjoying it so far. And I dabble in the whole crypto, NFT, and Web3 space. So yeah, I also work at Waku. What Waku does is Waku builds infrastructure for decentralized networking and communication. All right, so what is technical writing? In short, technical writing is the creation and management of written content about technology. So if you see a technical article on the internet, let's say you're trying to solve a bug or something, and then you try to like check Google for help, and then you see an article, let's say Medium, Dev to Hash Node, and the rest. That article was written by a technical writer, and by the time you are done reading that article, you now understand how to how to solve the particular problem that you have. Or let's say it's an article that taught you about a new technology or how to integrate a certain framework with a certain library of some sort. Or you are reading like the product documentation of a company. All these are all this is forms of technical writing, and it was written by a technical writer. So a technical writer is the person that you employ in a company where you have products and then you want to teach this product to, let's say, your users or like other engineers. That's where technical writing comes into play. Now let's explore like different forms of technical writing. So you have API and end user documentation. So like I said, you want to integrate a particular product, or you see a brand new tool, and then you go to their website, you go to their documentation, and then you are reading it. That platform itself is built and was built and managed by a technical writer. You also have like how-to guides and tutorials. So you can find how-to guides and tutorials on a documentation platform, or like I said before, where you go to Google, you search for a problem, and then you see articles that teach you how to solve this particular problem. These are also forms of technical writing. So PRDs for engineers, basically, it's also a form of technical writing. Technical marketing and promotional pieces, research papers, white papers, instruction manuals. all these are forms of technical writing, because according to our definition, technical writing is basically writing about tech. So if you're writing about tech in any form, it is classified under technical writing. So now, why should you start writing? Number one, it's a lucrative and highly paid skill. Technical writing actually pays a lot of money, even if you are just freelancing and writing one-off articles for companies and blogs. It is highly paid, and then it's actually like a full-on career path on its own. You can actually like build a successful career of technical writing, and then climb up the ladder of being a technical writer, and even advance to being a lead technical writer, and even from there jump into developer relations. Number two, the more you write, the more you learn and become an expert on various technical subjects. So that's one thing I like the most about technical writing. You get to explore, you get to jump on different technologies. You just get to learn about a lot of things, and then you are going hands on because you're having to like research about them and then write about them also. Also, you get a better sense of user empathy when you start to write more, because when you are writing for users, for readers to read it. You're writing for your users to read that piece of article or that documentation. You are writing for them to actually read it and understand it. So in a way, you get a sense of how users think. You get to be able to like put yourself into like users' shoes, and you can also play a role in like UX research and product research, basically, and actually be a part of the product team of the company. So like generally in like companies, whenever you join a company like technical writer, you are mostly like in the middle of being in the product team and being in the engineering team. So you like support both teams. Multiple times I've had to like attend like stand-ups of both teams, both the engineering team and product team. You know what's going on with the product, you know the new features that are coming up, then you interface with the engineers. Okay, this feature that is coming up, how exactly is it built? How can our users use this particular feature or whatever was integrated that you have to document. Also, you get to teach other developers what you know and help them solve their problem. Like regarding like the first example I gave, where you had a problem, you went to Google, you found an article that helps you solve that particular problem. That was written by a technical writer, and in a way, that person has taught another person what they know. So it's also a way of even building like an online profile for yourself, and even like it's a way of building an online profile for yourself where somebody can just go to Google and search and see the kind of stuff you do, because you're actually like building in the public, you are putting things out there, and it just more or less like forms like a brand for you. Then number five, same thing again. It increases your brand recognition and helps grow your network. The more you write, the more people read your article, the more people get to know who you are. And overall, you can even build a brand around technical writing and owning a blog, managing a blog, or just being known in the space generally as somebody who educates and contributes towards that particular space. So now, what are the things you need to know before you get into technical writing? So number one, you should know how to write, because at the end of the day, technical writing is just basically taking tech and writing about tech. So you need to know how to write. So when I say knowing how to write, this is stuff like tenses, spelling, grammar, that kind of stuff. If you're going to be writing documentation in another language, let's say in French or Spanish or Japanese, you need to also know the language that you are going to be writing in. That is more or less easy to know. Then number two, you should also possess good communication skills and be able to pass across your message. Because it's one thing to know something, and it's another thing to be able to teach that thing to somebody else. So you should have like good communication skills, so that when you're writing an article or when you're writing documentation, the people who read it actually understand what's going on and actually know. And I like by the time they finish reading your article, they actually understand what happened, and they actually know, they actually learnt from it. So you need like good communication skills for that. And also you should be able to pick up tech skills on the fly. You should be able to research on product and actually write about them, because a lot of the time you'd actually be doing this a lot. The engineering team will come up with a brand new product, and then you actually have to learn how to use that particular product, because you're the person that's going to explain it for users. There's no way you can just go and read, because you are the one that's actually going to write what other people are going to read, and you did not join them in the development. So you need to know how to like pick up skills on the fly, understand things pretty quickly, and write about it. So now, what are tools that can help you as a technical writer? So for research, the basic stuff: Google, Quora, Stack Overflow, ChatGPT. For taking notes, Google Keep, Evernote, Notion, or basically any other notes app that you have and you are very comfortable with. Authoring tools, these are tools that you actually use to write documentation or just basically write an article. So we have like Google Docs, Microsoft Word, Dropbox Paper, and Notion again. And then the reason why I'm putting Visual Studio Code here is that when you start to work on documentation portals, so these documentation portals that they actually follow these docs as code framework or system, where the documentation itself is a product and it's actually a code base on its own. So you need an IDE or a text editor to actually edit the files in that documentation portal. So any IDE or any notes, any text editor is fine. So Visual Studio Code is just an example there. But now for editing tools, so these are tools that help you edit whatever you've written. So Qbot helps you paraphrase. Grammarly helps ensure that your grammars are all right. There's no spelling mistake. There's no issue of any form. And then ChatGPT, you also use ChatGPT to edit what you've written. So you can just tell ChatGPT, oh, you've written this, tell it, and just tell it to rewrite it. Write this particular piece of content, and to write it around that form, and then you can take that, add it to what you've written before, modify it, and you have something brand new to put out there. The Hemingway editor, this is also like Grammarly, so it just helps you check your grammar, check that there's no spelling errors and all, and also give you suggestions of how you can better write sentences. Now for documenting tools, so these are tools I actually use to build actual documentation platforms. So you can use tools like Gitbook, Swagger, Redocly, Docusaurus. So these tools help you build out the documentation portal. Like when you go to, let's say, Paystack's documentation, or you go to the documentation of any product out there, you can use these tools to actually build out the platform and have users visit it. So you don't have to write the code base from scratch. You can just spin up Docusaurus, spin up Redocly, spin up Gitbook, and then you have something up and running. Then you can also use Postman for API documentation, and then you can also use Swagger for API documentation too. So this is listing out all the endpoints, and documenting their parameters and like responses and requests. So now, what are resources that can help you as a technical writer? So I have this list of resources that you can use to like get started. There are a couple of courses from Google. There's a list of things you need to know, list of articles that you can read, list of courses you can take. There's this tutorial on getting started with Markdown. There's a bunch of resources here, and I'll probably find a way to like share this slide over, or have it being posted, let's say in the comment section or something, so everybody can access this. Yeah. Then technical writing best practices. So what are the things you need to know? Like what are guidelines that you need to follow to ensure that you're writing like the best piece of content? So first, before you write any piece of article or documentation of any form, you should have an outline. So an outline just basically like a skeleton of the article, where you have like the headings and different then bullet points of what's being in each heading. So you just basically like define like a structure of how you should write your article, instead of just going headway and just jumping into the article directly. Like have this outline. It will help you better structure your article. It will help you see, let's see, different parts that you are missing, or whatever, you can just use this to better structure your article and come up with a very nice content. And personally, articles where I started with an outline, at the end of the day, ended up being better than articles where I did not have an outline before starting. Number two, maintain consistency in your writing. So if you are using a heading style or you're using a grammatical person in your article, let's say you start your article with a certain style, just use that particular style throughout the whole article. And if you're writing like a documentation portal, if you have a style that you've already implemented, just use that grammatical style. Just use that style basically all around. If there's a certain way people spell a certain thing, or there's a certain way people spell a certain thing, and you start with that particular style. Don't just change it midway during the article so that you don't confuse readers and they think it's something else. Also, another one is write your sentences clearly and don't repeat yourself. This is actually pretty straightforward why you should do it. Why you should write your sentences clearly is that in technical writing, people don't really care if there's a lot of words, or people don't really care if there's a lot of words. You should always try and go straight to the point of what you're trying to pass across. If there's a message you're trying to pass across, and let's say you've written it using like 10 words, for example, and let's say you find another way to write it in, let's say, 5 words, pick the one of 5 words. Whenever people open a documentation, or whenever people open an article to read, like a technical article to read, they just want to go straight to the point and solve whatever problem they have or learn whatever they want to learn. They're not really interested in story. So if you see yourself repeating something, or you see yourself using too many words to explain a particular thing or speed up a particular sentence or something, just break it down, shorten it, and just go straight to the point. Also, avoid having very long paragraphs. If you are trying to write something and you see that you're having too many paragraphs already, just break it down into multiple paragraphs. It's way easier to read a piece of text that is broken down properly rather than just having everything jumbled up together. A common example is Twitter. So you see some people who would write a very long tweet and there's no spacing in between, there's no anything, it's just all jumbled up together. You would actually find that particular tweet harder to read than one where it's broken down into different paragraphs or it's broken down into different tweets. So the same thing should also apply to whatever article you're writing. As much as possible, you don't want to stress the user that is reading that particular content. And also write your sentences in active voice rather than passive voice. You can probably just look up what this means, but just remember that always speak active voice rather than passive voice. If you use a tool like, if you're using Grammarly, if you paste any sentence in passive voice, it just really tell you that, oh, you wrote this in passive voice, why don't you change it to active voice? And there are multiple times where it will actually rewrite it for you and tell you, oh, write it like this instead. It will be in active voice rather than passive voice. And these are like some examples. Number 6, use white spaces and bullet points wherever you can. So let's say you're trying to list a couple of things. Let's say you're writing, let's say, a prerequisite of an article, and you're listing out all the tools they need to have to be able to like follow through the article. Instead of just writing it with like separating it with comma, you need Docker Compose, you need TypeScript and the rest. Why not just have a bullet point instead and break it down? The reason why you should do that is that it's very easy to look at. It's just like, let's say a reader is reading and they're already seeing like paragraphs and stuff, and then there's just one part that just stands out, that is a bullet point or the list. It's just easier for them to notice, and it's also easier for them to reference back, and they also know that, oh, this is a list of things rather than one single sentence. Another one is always try and include pictures and diagrams in whatever article or documentation you're writing, because it will help the reader understand the message you're passing across very easily. So you're explaining a particular process. If you can draw a flow chart diagram to explain it, that's good and fine. If you can have the content team create some form of infographic or some form of diagram or anything really, include it. If you can find an image on the internet that explains or that passes across like the message, that just basically explains what you're trying to pass across, try and include it in your article to help you a lot. Then also, if you're writing articles or documentation, try and avoid screenshotting your code base or screenshotting your IDE and just pasting it there, because they can't easily copy it out. Let's say I'm coming to a documentation, I want to learn how to use a particular library. I don't want to be typing it out one by one. If you embed it in Markdown or you use GitHub gist, it's easier for me to just copy it and paste it in my local IDE and run it, rather than me having to type it one by one. Then again, if you are using abbreviations for the first time in your content, write out the full meaning. So let's say SQL, for example, full meaning of SQL is structured query language. The first time you write SQL, there are exceptions where it's a very popular abbreviation. SQL is a very popular abbreviation. Everybody knows what it is. If you're going to write an article about SQL, anybody who's going to read it already knows what it is. But I'm just going to use that as an example. The first time you use an abbreviation in an article, write it out in full, then put the abbreviation in brackets. Then going forward in the article, you can continue using that particular abbreviation. Just take note of that instead of just assuming that the reader automatically knows what the abbreviation means, except it's a very, very, very popular thing. Like, I don't expect you to write an article about HTML and you write out the full meaning of HTML. There's really no point of doing that. But if it's more specific or more specialized abbreviations, you should always do that first. And also, if you are building a code demo in your content, always test it out. And this is how you test it out. You've written an article. Let's say you are writing an article on how to integrate, let's say, a particular crypto payment gateway into an application. You've built out your demo application, you've documented it, you've written it out, your article is good to go. Before you publish it, start the project afresh and recreate it again or rebuild it again using only the article, using only the instructions you put in the article. This can help you identify like any issues that might occur. Sometimes it might not even be issues. There are cases where I was writing an article, I built a demo application, I was already writing the article. Then in the middle of building the article, I made some changes to the demo application. Let's say I found a bug and I fixed it, or I added a new feature, or I just changed a couple of things that just made it behave in a different way. When I now go back and rebuild it again, I now see that, oh, I actually forgot to update the article with the updated code. So that can just help you catch any errors that come up, and then you can fix it before you publish it out there for users to use. And also always check whatever you're writing with tools like Grammarly and Hemingway app, because you find out like very, very, very often you might make a typographical error. That happens often. Another one is that you might have written the article to like the best of your knowledge, best grammar and everything, and then Grammarly will be like, hey, why don't you write this in this way? And then it's just better. So yeah, always just do that as like a final phase before you actually publish your article or documentation. And also, one very important thing, whenever you're writing an article, if there's a particular word that you wouldn't use on a normal day when you're talking to somebody in person, don't bother writing it in an article. You don't want to include a lot of vocabulary when you're trying to. So, for example, now I'm reading an article to learn something, and then in the article is now using words that I don't even know, meaning that I'm trying to understand something, but then I'm not having to like open a dictionary and like, oh, what does this word mean? Before I even come back and understand what the article is even trying to tell me. Just keep it simple. Don't stress yourself. Don't use a lot of high level vocabulary that if two people are talking on a normal day, they wouldn't use. Then also take your time to like properly understand your content intended audience. So just have an idea of who is the average person that is going to read this particular article, or who is the average person that is going to be visiting this documentation, and tailor the article or the documentation towards that particular audience. If you're going to write it for beginners, then you want to break things down even more. You'd want to go further in depth into how to do some certain things. But if you're going to write an article for like seniors or something, you know you can skip some from some beginner stuff. You know you can skip some simple stuff and just head into it. Then also, when you're done writing, editing, just read your article again and just see how you can improve it overall. Then also, if you manage documentation portals, from time to time, you should carry out something called a usability test. Now, what's the usability test? So, usability test is when you have an article, or let me use article. Let me use you have a documentation, and you have a particular guide in that documentation that teaches users, let's say, how to run a node or how to use a certain library to do a certain thing. So you invite somebody who, let's say, from your community or from another engineering team that is not concerned with that particular product, and tell them to jump on a call with you, read the article, and actually run the node or integrate that particular SDK. Just basically do what the guide is expecting them to do, and just tell them to communicate their thoughts with you. So as they're reading the article, they might get stuck on certain places, or they might not understand certain phrases you use in certain places. So just take note of this, and then after the usability call, you can use that feedback to improve the documentation. So from time to time, do that for your documentation. So it's in a way it puts you in the shoes of the average person that is going to be visiting that documentation, and then you get to see live what kind of issues they are facing or whatever is confusing them in general. Then another one is if you're going to be adding a hyperlink in a particular sentence, instead of writing something like click here and then putting the link over it, or having more like read more and then just putting the link over it, put the hyperlink on a descriptive text. So for example, you want somebody to read a particular guide, let's say the running of a node. So instead of saying something like check out the running node article here and putting the hyperlink on the here, you can say something like check out the how to run a node guide, and then the hyperlink is on the how to run a node guide text. So in a way, when I'm looking at the link, I have an idea of where the link is going to take me to. It's going to take me to the guide that is going to teach me how to run a node, rather than just saying here and I'm like, where is here? That kind of thing. All right, so this wraps up the session, more or less everything I want to say. And then this is the link to the article bit.ly/technical-writing-talk.
I hope you can hear me. So thank you
Yeah, I can hear
very
you.
much, Solomon, for that. So that was really interesting. That was amazing. So I think I learned a thing or two from the talk you just gave. And so I have a question. I have more like just a couple of questions from my end, and we'll
All
also check
right.
out if others have questions here as well. So my first question is in terms of writing a technical piece for developers, how what's the best approach to actually you have an idea you want to write, or you want to write about a tool or a developer like technology. What's the best approach to go about writing it from start to the end?
Are you wait, let me get it correctly. Are you like asking what my writing flow is? Like I have an idea I want to write, like what are like the steps I take from ideation to publishing?
Yeah, perfect. That's the question.
All right. So let me give you a live example. So So I have this article on how to build a blockchain in Golang. So let me just say how that whole thing came about. So first off, I was learning about blockchains at the time, and then I eventually understood it to a point. And then I was also learning Golang. So I was like, oh, why don't I build up my Golang skills and take on this as a project? So what I did was that I first built the application out. And when that worked fine, the first thing I did was open Google Docs. So I like using Google Docs to write articles. Other people might like using Notion. People might like using Dropbox paper. But basically, any tool where you can just basically write out your article, that's actually very fine. So I opened Google Docs, and then the first thing I did was to create an outline for this particular article. So I listed out like different sections I plan to have in the article. So like the title, the prerequisites, the step 1, the step 2, the step 3, how to implement certain features, the conclusion. I had that out in Google Docs. Then I had like bullet points of what I plan to cover in each section. Then I started writing from the beginning. I wrote an introduction. I filled up all the headings. I filled up all the sections. When I was done with this, I pasted it into Grammarly. Let's see if there's any issues or if there's any way Grammarly can improve it. After taking this, went through it again, is there any way I can improve it and the rest? But like overall, when I was done with writing the article, I went ahead to publish it. We're publishing it on dev.to. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah. So that was like you just gave a flow on how you were able to like get an article from idea to publishing. So that's good. So I have another question, but before we come to that, I think there's one question on the comments session. So Liam is asking if there are any communities for writers. Do you have any community that you could recommend for Liam?
Okay, so there's this community. I'm trying to remember the name. I'll probably say it on the call. Let me just look it up. But basically, yeah, they do this. I think it's Hack the Docs, something like that. But I'll actually check and like say it on the call before this ends. But basically, yeah, they do like conferences from time to time. They have like communities in like different. It's something like GDG, but for technical writers, that kind of stuff. So
I
yeah,
think that's
I
right.
think they have
Write the docs.
Write the Docs. Yeah, Write the Docs. Yes. That is it. The Write Docs. So yeah, you can check out Write the Docs. But overall, there really isn't a lot of community surrounding technical writing itself. Like the way you sign communities for like back end, front end, web as a whole, where you have GDG, where you have Oscar Fest for open source. There really isn't a lot of communities around technical writing. The only one that comes to my mind every time I'm asked this question is Write the Docs, and then I don't think the Nigerian community is very active like that. But then what you can do is that, so what I did in my case is that I did not find any community, so I just built one. It's not anything very full scale. It's more like among friends that I know that are also into technical writing. So we just share tips with each other, help each other out, that kind of thing.
Okay, that works. So Liam, I hope that answers your question. So I have two more questions, and then we give it to
All right.
the public to ask the questions, and then we can call it a wrap. So one of my question is, what would you say is the most important skill for someone who wants to write in the Web3 space or in the Web2 space? Because you yourself, you've written articles both in the Web2 and Web3 space, and you've also done documentation. So what would you say is the most important skill someone needs to learn to be able to like write a good article in the Web3 space?
All right. So the only difference between a Web2 article or a Web3 article is really what exactly you are writing about. At the end of the day, like the fundamental skills still apply regardless of regardless of exactly what you're writing. Then I would say, for me, I would say the most important skill would be your communication skills. So you know something, how well are you able to teach somebody else what you know? That is the most important skill. Because once you have that very well, you can literally write an article, write documentation on literally anything you know. And then all you need to do is just know it. And then you are able to like translate it and teach other people the same thing. So the top skill would be your communication skills. The second one would be you being able to grasp things easily. It doesn't have to be very easy, but you are able to take on something that you know absolutely nothing about and learn it. That is also another very important skill that you need to have as a technical writer.
Okay, that's interesting. So, yeah, I agree with you. Those skills are very important. I mean, if you can't communicate, how will you be able to let the other person know what you're saying? So that's very important. So, my last question is, what advice would you give to anyone getting into the technical writing space, either in Web 2 or Web 3? What general advice do you have for them?
So general advice I will have is to learn, learn things that come your way. Just keep on learning and then keep on putting things out there. So put an article out there. You are learning something, write about it. You're learning something, write about it. You know something, just write about. Just populate your blog with. You should also have a personal blog too. Yeah. So having a personal blog is very easy. Just go to dev.to or Hashnode or Medium and just write and put things out there. Nowadays, like if I'm applying for like a job or something and they ask me, well, where's your portfolio? I just paste them a link to my blog. I don't have like all those developer websites that tells people about them. Like my blog tells you about me. You go to my blog, you see the kind of things I write. That already tells you the kind of things I know. You read the article, you actually understand that already passes across the message that I know how to write. And then you see the quality of the article. So like that is good enough for me. So learn new things because you really don't know how how those things you're learning would actually help you later. You might land a job tomorrow and then it's something that let's say it's a particular tech that you learned briefly a while ago or a very long time ago that would actually help you land that particular rule or something. So yeah, learn and then write about what you're learning.
Okay, I think that was a brilliant answer. So, yeah, I think those are all of my questions. So, I can't see any questions in the chat session. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop it on the chat session, and Solomon will be very happy to answer your questions. Well, it seems there's no more question. I think that's all of the questions we have for today. So I think we can call this a day. Thank you very much, Solomon, for explaining about uh, technical writing and how one can build a career in it, and also the steps it involves to be a technical writer. We do appreciate it, and I believe we've learned a thing or two from inside. So thank you all for attending. Thank you all for joining the live stream. This was fun. We hope to do this more often. And yeah, GM everyone. We will be looking forward to having more speakers to speak about Web3 development and also everything related to Polygon and everything around Polygon. So yeah, it was really fun doing this. So thank you very much, Solomon. I think we'll have to end the live stream now. And so, yeah, bye, everyone. All right.
All right. Thanks for having me.